Hello, everyone.
Hel-
Welcome to Azure Spring Clean session. Here we are teamed up with my partner in crime, Kasun here. Kasun, and as well as myself here, Cloud Marathoner, aka Elhan. So we are very pleased to bring this session to you during this Azure Spring Clean. I would say week of sharings that you are going to see. If you didn't check it yet, I would encourage everyone to go and check the Sprinkle 2026 website. There are a very interesting uh, build up of the sessions. Some of them are demos, some of them are actually recordings, as you are, going to see here. So, but before diving too much into that, I want to say thank you for the organizers and as well as the watchers of these sessions. Thank you for being with us. Kasun, anything on your end that you want to uh, tell to our
Yeah, I think
audience?
this is a very interesting. This session will be a very interesting one. So, and thank you for the organizers as well. So we'll we'll see what we can learn from this session.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Without any further ado, let's go. And if you never, heard about Kasun before, Kasun is actually one of the active participants of Cloud Native from Microsoft MVP world. He's a Microsoft MVP on Azure category here. He's
Yeah,
also Kubernetes guru. Some people call themselves Kuber cosmonauts, right? So I saw that one. So
Kubernetes.
Kubernetes. So,
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
you want, you can talk about that or give us timeline when you will become Kubernetes. I see that you are
I
into that.
have few more certification to do
Few more. Okay,
that.
great. So we are going to look for that. So yeah, Kasun comes with more than 10 years of experience in Azure, and he's a cloud native lover. He has, great set of certification as well. Anything else, Kasun, you want to talk about yourself?
Uh, Yeah, that's, I think, I really love the cloud technologies, especially Azure, and I'm really passionate about Kubernetes and the technology around the Kubernetes. So I'm daily working with Kubernetes in my projects these days. So
Yes,
I don't
that's
see a
awesome.
day that I'm not running kubectl at this time.
Okay, so kubectl is part of your daily life.
Daily life, yeah, at least
Okay.
I running kubectl once a day.
Nice, nice, nice. So if you come as a guest to Kasun's house and you don't find butter and bread, that's fine, but you will find kubectl there.
Yeah.
All right, great. So let's go, and this is about me. So I can speak about myself, but Kasun, how you would describe me? Then I will add the things that you missed.
Yeah, I think I'm working. We are both doing a lot of sessions from many years now. I know.
Yeah,
I think Kahani is one of the very experienced cloud architects, and he's doing really good job in Azure, and he has a lot of certifications around Azure and very well experience in that space. And I think you are also I think 5 or 6 years of MVP, right? So yeah, yeah.
yes,
So
almost the same as yours. Maybe
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1 or 2 years shy than yours. I'm not sure. Did you get your fifth year badge already?
Yeah, I
That
got my
blue.
VP badge.
So,
Yeah,
I didn't got it yet. So I'm looking
yeah,
forward to get that one. Yeah.
yeah. And contribute a lot of things to the MCT community as well as a community leader, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he has certification from Google Cloud and other cloud providers as well. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Kasun didn't mention about that, but Kasun also MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's not a Microsoft Certified Trainer community lead yet, but who knows? One day
yeah,
I see potential in him to become one. When he wants to do that. Yeah, I'm happy to be Microsoft MVP in Azure, and I mostly share a lot of stuff about infrastructure as a code, optimization, and as well
and
as
you have
FinOps.
very good courses in LinkedIn as well, right?
Yes, I had this opportunity to record a couple of Azure Bicep courses on
Yeah,
LinkedIn, so you may saw them on the LinkedIn. That's right. I hope they are helping the viewers and new starters in the infrastructure as a code. And this is the native way, in Azure. If you are in Azure, Microsoft Azure, one of the infrastructure as a code, Bicep is there natively to support you. In addition to the certificate, I have actually more than that certification. This is just the highlight. I have like 55 or 56 active certifications from Microsoft and different vendors. But again, I'm not trying to, I'm trying to maintain some of them, which I do a daily job. Like I have SAFe certification on the Scrum Master, but that's a part, I want to bring for as a value for this, session that you are going to learn is I'm deep involved into looking into the FinOps and native cloud monitoring in order to make sure that our customers are
Yeah.
getting value from the workloads they have. I also help the customers in navigating the some cost options where they can save on the operations, right? Because you want to, and as well as help them to migrate from certain type of workloads into more cloud native, where they can, get the benefits of cloud native and
Mm.
plus save on the cost of operating them, right? So it's like very, very, I would say, very active. Uh, so let me say it again. Actually, it's not very active, but it's very important for your customers to make sure that when you run services for them, they're actually getting, they don't overspend. They spend whatever is needed, and they get the value on their workloads, having them in your cloud environment. That's pretty
Uh,
much it. Yeah, back to you, Kasun.
Yeah, and by the way, I'll be in KubeCon if anyone is coming, right? So we can
Yeah.
meet. I think you will be in MVP Summit, right? So
Wow, yeah, that's a good reminder. Yeah, yeah. So you guys heard, right? So from Kasun, Kasun is going to be in KubeCon Amsterdam. It's in
I'm
the
sorry,
March month,
it,
right? So what date is it happening on March?
KubeCon Europe is in from 23rd to 26th March. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Mm.
So you heard the dates, guys. If you are there, just stop by, say hi to Kasun.
Yeah.
On my end, I'm actually planning to attend the like there's like these AI tours that Microsoft arranged across the major cities across the world. So I'm going to be presenting and as well as helping in cloud and AI booths at the event on in Washington DC. It's happening on the Microsoft DC AI tour this March 10th, which is basically next Tuesday. So if you are planning to be there, stop by. I'll be in that booth, cloud and AI booth. Say hi. I'm also going to help some speakers there with their presentation. So very pumped up to be there. So if you are in the neighborhood, stop by. And as well as end of the March, I'm not going to be able to be at the KubeCon, but I'm planning to be at MVP Summit, which is happening the last week of the March. So if you are in the Seattle area and you are also MVP and you are watching this, let's get connected there, and I would be happy to learn from you. Or if you have any questions, we can discuss them.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that, Kasun. I almost forgot
Yeah.
about that.
No worries.
Yeah, well, let's go to the slides here. So background story. So let's hear some of the background story from Kasun, and then I will complement them because we both have these background stories for our customers where we are trying to, bring everyday value as Microsoft MVPs to our customers.
Yeah, so this is the very interesting thing for me in the past few years that I worked with the customer. So the story behind this is this customer is moving from on-premises to the cloud. So then their workloads are migrating to the cloud, right? So because of that, and they have like a specific deadlines that they need to migrate this application to the cloud.
Mm-hmm,
So because of that, lot of at the beginning, the customer is not very focused on the cost. They want to make sure that they are going go live before the deadline date, right?
mm-hmm,
So that's one of the uh, reason for these cost optimizations for me. So and they didn't do much focus on the cost aspects. So yeah, and another thing is when they are moving different workloads, they didn't think about the sizing of these things. Because of that, the cloud cost will be getting increased monthly. So yeah. So and another development teams are not aware of how the cost is happening. Because of that, they are provisioning resources unwillingly, knowing that this will increase the cost.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of may sound familiar to some of you because you have been
Yeah.
in the place where you have to migrate from on-premise or from some other, you know, it can be basically a non-cloud environment into the cloud environment or from one cloud to another cloud. At that point, as Kasum mentioned, if you are on a time crunch, the priority is going to be to complete this migration as soon as possible. And if that's the goal, if it's your primary goal, then you wouldn't give too much thought about planning your operations, how much it's going to cost. You'll just do one-to-one migrations, basically. You know, they call it lift and shift. You know, maybe it's familiar term to most of you. So, but that's not the most cost-effective way to run and optimize your workloads. And as Kasun said, there will be a lot of things that, you know, will be shift into the second or third priority, and your primary focus is going to be into the speed of implementation of this migration and making sure it's successful. And but these afterthoughts about operations, the cost, the optimizing the operations, that thing will come right after once you are done with your migration, because at that point your customers, your team will understand that cost may not be, cost is going out of hand maybe, or cost is too high when you compare that with some expectations. So then you have to do this cost optimization, and there are different ways to do that. I'm not going to jump the guns here. We are going to look at some of those things that we learned from our experience, but this is very common in most organizations if you have been involved into the cloud migration projects. All right. So, but in addition to that, there are some challenges, right? So, what are those challenges? And we need to acknowledge the challenges, because this is something that you should expect, any team should expect, and hopefully plan accordingly to overcome them. So, first thing is over provisioning. Actually, when you look at some compute instances, especially the databases, when you try to migrate them from one environment to another, especially to the cloud, you want the suggested recommendation there actually is to over provision your database compute on cloud. And the reason is you want to make sure that your migration goes without any hiccups, any capacity issues, so that your data migration is successful. Because usually most of the, I would say, migration projects where I have been, they suffer some setbacks because data migration fails, and that's very, very important thing. So over provisioning for success and running your database engines, maybe for a few days over provision, it's not going to break the wallet, but it's going to definitely make difference in terms of outcomes that you can get. Then of course there's like this cloud waste, right? So when you over provision and you move the resources over time, you would if you need to have periodic kind of analysis to see is there anything that's not needed, or maybe it could be consolidated into one service. Maybe you don't need to have 10 log analytic workspaces, you just need to have one, so that you have very efficient way of debugging and querying problems whenever they occur. And then, of course, another part of the challenge is that the teams who are involved, especially the application team or other teams, they may not have visibility into the cost. So they may not be aware about that. So that's why their initial plan, the way how they want to migrate, may not be the most cost-effective way. So those type of things will come up as a challenge. And finally, another final challenge here is like having this insufficient uh, insights, insufficient metrics and I would say artifacts to know it in advance that what would be your utilization, because at that point you're just making some smart guesses, so to speak. But that's the challenge, because at that point you cannot define it, but once you get the actual utilization, then you can adjust according to the utilization to make sure that your workloads do not suffer under provisioning so that they are, available and customers are happy, and they are not over provisioned, because at that point it's going to cost much more than it needed.
Yeah.
Anything else, Kasun, you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I think you already explained a lot of things, right? So yeah, so these are some of the challenges I face when I'm doing the cost optimization for my projects. So
Hmm.
yeah, I
Okay,
I have some good examples for these things when we discuss in next slides, right? So
great. So,
we can
mhm.
deep dive into yeah.
Yeah, so let's look, Kasun, from your perspective, how success looks like, in these challenges and these scenarios.
Yeah, so so in my experience, we need to first look at we have to identify what are the waste happening in the cloud environment, right? So because when you are doing provisionings, sometimes you are doing over provisioning, right? So then we need to do analysis and say, do we really need these type of workloads, or is there any alternative that we can do? For example, if you have development app acceptance productions environment, right, then do we really need this SKU in development? Can
Hmm.
we use a different SKU in development? Likewise, we need to choose different correct SKUs and other kind of things based on the environment, right? So then that can reduce the waste on your applications, right? So one of the good example that I can give is in my current project, we have initially we had 5 databases, SQL databases, right?
Hmm.
But those databases are having the infrequent usage. That means those databases are not always inactive, right? In full capacity, right?
Hmm.
Then we think about when we are using VCO based capacity for databases. That means it will cost you around 500 euros per database, and for a 5 databases, it's about close to 3,000 euros, right? And it has infrequent usages, right? Then we have a possibility of moving to elastic pool, right? All the databases, right? So we can
Yeah.
create a one single elastic pool. Then when we can move those databases to elastic pool, then we can give like a medium range capacity to the pool, right? So then those databases can use those resources from the pool, right? From that, we were able to reduce 50% of our initial cost for database, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of way of eliminating resource waste, right? And reservation also very important, like saving plans. So we can do reservations for um, VMs and those kind of things. So we identify what type of VMs we can do reservations, right? And as I explained in like resizing compute databases, those are like selecting the correct SKUs without compromising the performance is very important,
Hmm.
right? And we need to do accountability as well, the teams within the team. So we have to educate teams in about waste. So if they are enabling specific logins, or if they are enabling specific features in the infrastructure, they need to be well aware uh, what is the exact cost, and do we really need that? That's the thing what I learned so far.
Yeah,
So
that's really good. I'll just add that, with reservation and savings plans, is that if you are trying to do that for compute instances, I think the first logical step before doing that should be right sizing it, because you don't want to reserve something without right sizing. Otherwise, yeah, with reservation, you will still get the savings, but you can get even more savings if it is right sized, and then, you have the reservation of that resource. Yeah, definitely. These are all very valid, all good points, especially with the using the shared services, as Kasum mentioned with SQL. Shared pool is if you have infrequently used multiple database, especially in the lower environments, then you want to make sure that you can share those services across the pool, so that you can minimize the cost footprint of those services for your customer. Yeah, definitely. So next year, it's a kind of elephant in the room, so to speak, right? The cost optimization is mostly about eliminating the waste, and part of it is that identifying the ideal or orphan resources, which can happen on different type of service on a different ways. So one of the most common known ones is like those orphaned data disks, right? That might be uh, in your environment that nobody is aware about. There are, of course, you run into wasting your resources when you over provision them and you don't have monitoring to understand what's the actual usage so that you can, have this proper sizing of the resources. And then when you, especially with, data, usually if somebody is moving to the cloud or learning about the cloud, the first thing that you learn is that data storage is cheap, but the compute is expensive. So that's why whenever you can stop compute, try to do that. That's like common knowledge that most of the people learn. But what you don't learn if you are not doing that in production is that actually the cost of storage might be very, very expensive if you don't have visibility into that. And one of
Yeah.
the great examples there is the Azure Log Analytic workspace, because this is very powerful service which starts with minimum cost, but over time it accumulates all those logs. And when you actually ship or you log all those metrics that you don't need, and you have this verbose kind of option enabled for some reason, then those datas are going to huge, very fast. It's going to get a lot of data, and you are going to be charged for that if you don't have a proper lifecycle management of your data where you discard some of the data that you don't need because let's say you don't your project says that you don't have to save any log data that's more than 30 day old, for example, right? So that's kind of one example. So having this proper understanding really helps to make sure that you don't, you make sure that your faucet is not, left open, meaning that water is not dipping every
Mm.
day. So you want to make sure you close the faucet whenever you are done working with that, resource.
Mm.
And then, of course, we mentioned about audit, and it's about service options that you are using. For example, we have this enabling audit logs for Kubernetes audit logs and Azure SQL audit logs. So whenever you are setting up and configuring the logs, there are different options that are given to you to choose what you exactly want to log. And if the engineer or whoever is doing that configuration, they do not understand and they turn by default everything on, that means that if that service is really running, 24/7, it's going to generate whole a lot of logs, and those logs needs to be stored somewhere, and those logs are going to cost you. So that's why, and it's not just about cost, it's also about operational awareness, because when you need those logs, you want to look into logs that you actually need. You don't want to look into the logs that are not needed or they are verbose and they do not bring any value. So that's why, planning accordingly, your logging strategy, what you want to log, what your application team wants to log, understanding it, and spending some cycles before implementing that is very, very valuable. It will
Mm.
help you a lot in eliminating the waste. Eliminating the waste. Anything else, Kasun, you would like to add?
Yeah, I won't tell that observability is not cheap if you're doing it,
Hmm.
if you don't do it correctly, right? So that's
Yes.
the thing you need to understand. Right? Some people think observability is not costing
It's
a
not.
lot, but if you do it wrong, you will be end up with a fortune, right? So
You'll be bankrupted basically. Like there was a
yeah,
lot of memes on internet. Somebody's walking in the park, sleeping in the park, and homeless, and they say, what happened? Why you are in this? Say like I left my EC2 instance running. So that's kind of part of the waste you are
yeah.
talking
Recently,
about
I
here.
saw
Yeah.
LinkedIn post like junior developer enable
Yes.
the logging in somewhere, right? Then the company cost like seventeen
Yes.
thousand euros per day.
Yeah.
Right?
Very. Okay, yeah, this
Mm.
we were laughing about it, but these are very real stories, guys.
Yes,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
this happens, and it may not be as funny if you are on the receiving end of it, but yeah, we want to raise awareness here. let's move to the next slide and right sizing the computer and databases.
Yeah,
Hassan,
yeah.
please go ahead.
So right sizing also very important because you need to understand what is the correct SKU if you are using VMs, what is the correct SKU or the type of VM that are used for your workload. So because if you are using VMs, then you may have like a different type of VM, like general purpose CPU memory optimized, right? So if you based on your workload requirement, like if you have a CPU heavy workload, then you have to choose the correct SKU which is optimized for CPU. And also you need to select what type, how much of CPU do you need, right? So without compromising the performance, right? So you shouldn't do under provisioning, but you have to make sure that you are in the correct zone, correct SKU that are actually need for your workload. So for example, in Kubernetes also we have different node pools that we can provision with the different VMs VMS SKUs, right? So
Mhm.
then we need to identify our based on our workload, what type of workload do we need to provision, what type of SKUs do we need to provision for node pools in a case, right? So it is analysis you have to do and come up with a plan for these type of workloads are very good, right? And you have to use auto scaling in, for example, in Kubernetes to make sure that um, you scale your workload based on the requirement and scale down after it's not needed, right? So those kind of things are very important.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I will
and
just say
SQL,
that what you mentioned there, like with the auto scaling, is needs to be based on alert thresholds, right? So based on
threshold,
that
yeah,
metrics that you are collecting, that you have this observability in place, you kind of base your rules on that, right? So
yeah,
that's and like that's one way to do that, being honest. But I heard that there are some other way as well. Let's say if you already expect that. I will give example from kind of US here. If the Black Friday is coming
Black
and your
Friday, yeah.
company is, yeah, expecting to have a sales and you expect a
So
lot of
we
customers coming up, so you can,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead,
you can provision beforehand
in advance, yeah.
that day, then you can you can
Sleep. Well,
reduce it after
then you
the
can sleep well that your site is not going to crash.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, so and also the SQL SQs also very important. Like if you are using managed SQL databases or Azure SQL, then you need to think about do I need a general purpose SKU or do you need a hyperscale or business critical, right? So one scenario in my current project we understand is that we have accepted environments and we are using business critical for that SQL databases, right? But when you see a difference between SQL business critical and the general purpose, you don't have much a difference in the feature wise, right? Right.
Hmm.
But it's not mandatory to. It's not mm, like a critical thing to have a business critical in acceptance because it's accepted environment, right? So you can use general purpose as well. So that kind of things are very important on identify we are in the correct SKU for these type of resources, right?
Right, right.
So
And
and
and I will give it, yeah, and because
yeah,
I will just give another example as well, right?
yeah,
So
sure,
for those databases, if it's for the production and you want to have this high availability, right? Because that's what your
yeah,
custom requirements are saying, then you want to make sure that you use availability zones, right? And that needs to be part of your production. However, in a lower environment, which might be your staging, it can be, your dev test, whatever environments you have, those environments may not need availability zones. If you
yeah,
are not, doing the DR kind of type of things there that you want to see what will happen, then you don't need it. So you just need to provision those services which with the same, I would say, features that you have in production if you are going to test, because you still need to rely on those features working in your lower environment. However, in terms of cost and operations of your load environment, it will make a big difference because you are not
yeah,
going
yeah.
to run this full-blown kind of uh, production, needed
Equal.
equal or production equals service in your lower
Yeah.
environment. Effective.
Yeah, so then another thing is we need to identify, like if you're using Cosmos DB, one of the example that we have faced, because we are using Cosmos DB a lot, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to identify the RUs that you need really using, right? So based on that, we can do provision RUs for Cosmos DB and get a discount from Microsoft. And another thing that we can do for database like SQL and VMs is, like if you're using Windows VM, we can use hybrid benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can pass the on-premise SQL licensing to the cloud if you have a licensing. Then that's also another possibility of reducing the cost as well, right?
Yeah.
And another one is using the serverless option. That is what we did recently, right? So we have Cosmos DB environments, right, for development, right? But we provision with provision and throughput, right? But some environments, like for example, the environments that we test for our infrastructure changes, right? Those databases are no, we don't use at all, right? We
Yeah.
don't
You don't
even run anything,
dedicated.
right?
So yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, even when you do provisional RUs, then it will cost you like even you are not using, right? So that's the ideal candidate for serverless, right? The same thing can do for the SQL databases as well. You can do serverless option.
Yes.
So if you have to think about, do we really need or the kind of a thing, then go with those options. Yeah.
Right. And it comes back to 24/7, right? So when you have services, do you really need to run them 24/7?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, that's not the case. You just need to run them whenever there's a need for it because it's in the lower environment. And it's okay if it will fail, on the first try or second try. Then
Yeah.
you can explore those serverless options. They are really good and they are there to help you with
Yeah.
those, challenges. Okay, that's great. Next here, we already kind of mentioned about that. So when you are doing some cost optimization, you want to know where are they and what you can use. There are multiple options in Microsoft Azure environment. We are going to, focus on that for today's session. And one of them, Kasun already mentioned, it's about provisioning the RUs in advance for your Cosmos DBs. That's kind of one way to go with that. Of course, with reservations, we already mentioned you have RIs, which is reserved instances for compute, and it doesn't need to be just for the virtual machines. You can do the reserved instances for different workloads. For example, you can have a reserved instance for managed service like Azure App Services. You can have that for the Azure MySQL instances that are
Manage
managed
instances.
managed yeah managed MySQL instances. Yes, so there
Yeah.
are like different ways. There's also Azure Redis Cache. There are different managed services where you can utilize them. So you need to be aware about that. And of course, in order to get most accurate information about that, you want to rely on built-in advisor within the Microsoft portal, which is called Azure Advisor. And you want to periodically look at that, make sure that your environment, whenever it changes, you also have visibility into cost and where if it is, for example, over provision resources, so you can get these actions done on time, and if there are any orphan resources, you discover them before they are before they are have been forgotten there for a couple of months, so to speak. So having this Azure Advisor as your trusted friend to look into those recommendations, act upon them is very, very important. And if you never use that tool, I would say go and have have another look into this. It's going to be very helpful. Anything else, Kasun, that I'm you would like to add?
No, I think that you covered a lot, most of the things, right? So yeah, yeah. Think about reserve instance, then the hybrid benefits. Those are some kind of sometimes those are very easy way of low hanging
Yes.
fruits, kind of a thing you can do easily without much configuration, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those are
Yeah,
very easy ways to do that.
especially with hybrid benefits. If your
Yeah,
customers already spend on the licenses, that can bring a lot of relief. And it's not just for Microsoft Windows systems we are talking about. I know customers who had like Red Hat enterprise licenses, for
Yeah,
example. If you have them in place, they can be also, very good to know in advance so that you can more accurately calculate the cost and operations once you are doing your migration. Next year, building accountability across the teams. Go
yeah.
ahead, Kasum.
So yeah, that's very important thing when you have multiple teams. So they need to be very aware of the what type of logs that they are sending to log analytic workspace, especially, right? So sometimes they enable like a debug log and very verbose logs. So these logs can be costing a lot when you do the ingestion into the log analytic workspace, right? So that's what thing we need to think about. We have to be very cautious about what type of logs enabling. And audit logs and diagnostic log, as we discussed, we need to do filtration. Which type of log do you need? For having diagnostic logs as a feature, you should enable it for the sake of having it, right? So you have to think about what type of logs do you really need, and you have to think about, do we really use these type of logs for any purposes, right? For our daily work, daily troubleshooting or thing like that. If you are not using, then I think it's not necessary to just send in there. So we need to advise teams about it. Yeah, that's the main thing. And when people are provisioning, when the teams are provisioning resources, like blindly selecting SKUs and features, they need to think about the uh, uh, outcome of this feature. Do we really need it, or does it make use of it? Those kind of things are important. Without having a proper outcome, you shouldn't change those things. Yeah. You're mute.
Yeah, thank you. I was muted. Yeah, I'll just, these are very, very important points that Kasum brought. I'll just add something is one of the things that you may find in the environment that you might be, joining the team later on, or you might be taken over of the other, team's work. You may find that there are in the given, environment, there are many Azure Log Analytic workspaces have been provisioned. So this is one of the good practices is to understand when you need one and how to operate one. There's a good guidance on Microsoft Learn about that. I'm not going to, bring all those points now. I would advise you to go and read that. But one thing that you need to know is that usually if you see on a one subscription for just one workload or maybe two or three customers, if you see that there are, more than a handful of log analytic workspaces, that's a red flag. That means that something is done not based on the recommendations, and you need to investigate them and reduce those log analytic workspaces, because that would help a lot in terms of saving the cost on those resources, because they are not cheap. Back to you.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah,
All
that's a
right.
good insight. Yeah,
Yeah, and another one, next step. So here, before going into the demo, we wanna just kind of sum up certain things in terms of next steps when you are doing your FinOps optimization and you want to save costs for your customers. Is that but whenever you are trying to decide on scaling of the resources, make sure that you base that on metric alerts that you are gathering from observability that Kasum mentioned, and do your rules based on those metrics. Configure your rules so that you get basically scaling happening. You are upscaling or downscaling based on those metrics. Next is you also want to detect any overspend. That's where budgets are coming very handful. So I would definitely recommend to understand what's the current budget for the given workloads, and then set and monitor those budgets. Um, Again, your environment can change from time to time based on what's happening in your cloud environment, maybe new resources provisioning, some resources are getting decommissioned. You want to make sure that you periodically analyze your environment for cost evaluations. And it's not just cost, also for operational efficiency, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you want to maybe look into that certain things are actually suffering. You are, for example, for certain resources, you may be under provisioned where there's a choke point that customers are complaining that, hey, they are having bad experience or they are waiting too long on your sites to get their transaction done. Another one is, of course, uh, with all those metrics, with all this very valuable information, you want to make sure that you can visualize that and can give that to the operation team so that they can act upon of that data. That's where this Power BI integration comes very handy. Based on your scenario, you can create those dashboards to make sure that your operation team have eyes on important things that they need to act upon to make sure that they are acting upon problems before customers are calling and complaining about that. Back to you, Kasun.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
All
So
right. Mhm.
actually, cost evaluation means it's like a cycle. So you have to do it in very frequently to
Yeah.
identify the patterns and those kind of things. So for that, you can use Power BI, then Azure Portal, and Matrix, or those kind of things are all coming together when you're deciding these next steps. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Next, we have here some learning and demo kind of to get it together, and you will look into you will look into Azure Advisor in action, meaning where it is, how it looks like, where you can have a insightful information about cost. Then of course there is a separate cost management service within the Azure portal. That's also part of the demo that you are going to see. And then of course you also need to have Azure budgets in place, and you would see where it's implemented, what purpose it's serving. You want to make sure you have implemented Azure budgets based on your expected spend of the
Yeah.
resource. um,
So for the demo about for Azure cost and how we can get more insight about how the cost is behaving in Azure is as we speak previously, we can use Azure Advisor, right? It is a free available tool in Azure. So anyone can go into the Azure Advisor and take a look at on what are the recommendations that are provided by the Azure for regarding the cost, right? So if you are in Azure portal, you can search for Advisor on top, global search. Then you can see Azure Advisor, right? So when you click the Advisor, it'll come up to the overview page as like this. So in this overview page, there are different categories available, but for this session, the most important category is cost. So here, if you click the cost category recommendation, you can see many recommendations available based on the um, workloads that are running in your environment, right? So as example, in my environment, there are many workloads are running. So you can see there are Kubernetes services, then there are disk, and there are other multiple workloads are running. So you can see multiple recommendations are shown in here. So what you can do is you can get additional information by clicking one of these recommendations, right? So let's take a look at this recommendation about Azure Disk, right? So this recommendation is telling me that there are some Azure disks which are not attached to any VM or any VMs, right? So that means kind of orphan data disk, right? So then you can take a look at of these workloads and you can navigate to these workloads as well for more investigation, right? And what you can do is you can dismiss these alert if you think this is something you already know, or you can postpone the recommendation for a future period of time. As well as there's another option, what you can do is you can create an alert based on these recommendations. So if if there are if if there's a recommendation coming again in future, these type of recommendations, then you will get notified via an alert.
And Kasun, I will just add one more thing on recommendations. So
Yeah,
it's also very possible that you need to take those recommendations and share it with the system owner or the people who are
yeah,
actually in charge of, deciding, if they
yeah,
want to proceed with that. You can export that into a Excel or CSV file,
yeah,
format it well, and then share it with your customers. Or you
customers.
can also, take that data, that Excel spreadsheet as a source data and visualize in Power BI, and they will deliver your presentation to the customer. But that's
Yeah,
are the also a very handy way to do that. Back to you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks. Next way of the next option that we have for getting a more insight on cost is using cost management in the Azure portal. We have cost management plus billing uh, service. So it's the way of uh, viewing how much cost you have spent on different type of resources in Azure subscription, right? Or multiple subscription. So this is a very good place for you to get a financial view, how much of you are spending for a specific resource or resource group, or how the spending trend is going on, then about budgets, then creating alerts based on the spending. Those kind of things can be viewed from this cost management section. So as example here, if you can see there are multiple views of multiple views that you can see for cost analysis, right? So one of my favorite views are like service view, right? Service view will provide you the cost spending, right, based on the different service type, right? So for example, here you can see for virtual machine, storage, then Defender for cloud, then Grafana. There are different services within the Azure, right? So then you can see the total amount you spend on these different services. And if you drop down each of these services, you can see what kind of products and the meter type that are used for each of these VM sizes, SKUs, and the amount that you spend for each service. So it's a very good way of viewing based on the resources. Then you can identify which resources you are spending more, right? Then this is the accumulated view. So here you can see a graph. So it will show you actual and the forecasted value as well. So then you can see some future overview, how much you are going to spend in end of spending for that subscription. In below also you can see the service-wise categorization, then location-wise as well as resource group-wise. So here you can see the red line, that is my Azure budget I have created, right? So then you can see you are spending over the budget or those kind of things, right? So then you can analyze, is there any anomalies coming to the subscription or resources? So you can investigate more. Then you can do like a resource group wise also. Then you can identify if you have multiple resource groups, then you can identify each resource group, how much of it is spending for resource group wise. And if you want a more granular, then you can go with daily cost as well. So it will show you how much you spend each of the day uh, for different services or different type of workloads, right? So it's a good overview to see how much you spend in daily, right? And as I speak about budgets, you can go into the monitoring section in the cost management. Then you can create your budgets from here. So for example, here I have my own budget, right? So you can see my budget is 500 euros, $500. Then you can add specific conditions, right? So for here you can see I have condition to send alert if the 50% of my budget is reached, then 70% of my budget reach, and if the 100% is reached, right? So then you will be well notified before the budget reach, then you can take necessary action for that. Then you can create alert rules as well. For example, in here I have anomaly alerts, right? So daily anomaly alerts. So I will get a notification when there's a sudden increase on the resource usage or sudden increase in the cost for that subscription, then you will get a notification. Okay. And there's a cost alerts also for sending a notification to your budget and those kind of things. So this is a good way of um, viewing your overall cost optimization, and you can see the advisor recommendations as well from the cost management. And if you have reservations and hybrid benefits also viewed in here, and savings plan also viewed here if you have any. So it's like a overall place you can view your cost related things.
Yes, and I will just add something here. Sometimes it might be and this is true for the production where you have multiple subscriptions. As you know, you can group your subscriptions into the management groups. And as a
Management.
scope, when you look at the cost across subscriptions, then you can, if you look at the management group scope, then you can, on that scope, can see the, spend and everything that's across the, subscriptions. This could be true if you, for example, running your system, your production is a separate subscription, your, dev and staging is a separate subscriptions, but your customers wants to see the, overall, right? They want to see overall spend across all the environments. That could be the one way to look into that. Just keep in mind that you need to define your scope specifically, and it doesn't need to be subscription. It could be even a resource group, right? So that could be your scope where you want to look at the spend and see what's happening there. Back to you.
Yeah, that's a good addition. So yeah, so the scope also very important. So you can see overall if you need. Yeah. Yeah, that's all for this demo. So I think you have got a overall idea about cost, right? But if you have Copilot also, you can help Copilot. You can get the help of the Copilot as well, Azure Copilot for cost optimization. You are in mute. You are in mute. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me know. Yes, as Kasun mentioned, actually, I'm planning to create a session on that, so you can
Yeah.
check that on. It's either going to be on YouTube or it's a post. Yeah, don't miss on that. Azure Copilot is there as well to help you with some inquiries for your cost optimization and efficiency. Yes. So let's go switch back to our slides and summarize everything before we
Yeah.
can, give kudos to everybody who's watching us. All right, so we are back now from demo, and as you see there, you may come up with some questions, right? So certain things may not be clear, or you may have a need for follow-up. If that's the case, feel free to reach back to Kasun or myself on LinkedIn. You can put our names, and you would be able to find us, or you can also put your questions in the chat of this recording video that you are most probably watching right now, and we'll try to address that as soon as possible. But you know where to reach us. Just look at the beginning of the video and you will see our context there. That said, we want to say big thank you to every participant of this great Azure Spring Clean event. As you know, it happens now periodically every spring. We have this event in place, and thank you for organizers, making sure that it's still going and it's coming every year. So, and I'm happy that I was able to team up with Kasun this year again to present this session to all of you. And based on the spring, spirit that we are all going to experience, we are in the March month. I hope we can clean up our environment and make sure not just us, but our customers are also ready for the
Yeah.
spring. Anything from you, Kasun, before we say
Mm,
bye to our
yeah, no, I
viewers?
think I also want to thank the organizers. And thank you for you, Khan, for doing the session with me. So I think we will do another session in next year, right? Let's
Hopefully,
see.
yeah.
Hopefully,
Maybe
yeah.
we'll, yeah, maybe we will not, wait till the next year. Maybe there are some other community events
Other,
where we can
yeah,
team
yeah,
up again, right? So,
yeah,
so that's not, saying to our viewers that, hey, wait another year. Don't get us
yeah,
right. Don't get us wrong. So, but again, we are happy that for the viewers that they are watching and following us. Especially, we have this common channel where we are going to, upload this recording. It's mostly about infrastructure as a code, but we are also going to add different type of topics there. So, check and subscribe to our YouTube channel that we run together. But more importantly, keep us in loop. What type of challenges you have, what type of things you want to learn, and let us know your feedback.
yeah.
Have a
Sure.
great day, everyone, and thank you for watching
And see you.
us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great day.
Bye.